We're back with more of my conversation with Congressman Keith Ellison. He's departing Congress after this session to run for Attorney General of Minnesota. Here's his explanation for why he's leaving Washington.
Well, I think that in this day and age, people need a people's lawyer, an advocate who will stand up with them, who will fight for them, and against whenever some big, large power is ready to roll over them. You know, that might be the federal government, as in the case of this travel ban, Muslim ban, but it could also be a large company that is, polluting and not being held accountable, or a payday lender, or somebody giving unfair terms to consumers, or it could be workers who are victims of wage theft or misclassification between independent contractors and workers. Sometimes companies misclassify and to the detriment of workers. It could be small counties in our state who need the support of the Attorney General's office in the case of a murder or some sort of a case that is a big drain on their resources beyond what they can manage. I think that Minnesota needs a people's lawyer who will stand with them and will level the playing field when they're facing large circumstances, large adversaries, large entities that would roll over the interests of the average person.
I wonder how much the current climate in Washington impacted your decision to leave.
Well, I see it as a tremendous honor to be a member of Congress, and I've served there for 12 years and have been very, very blessed to be chosen by the people of the 5th District now 6 times to represent them, and that's a tremendous honor. But I'm not running from something. I'm actually running to something. I'm running to the opportunity to be the people's advocate as the Minnesota Attorney General, and so I can stand up with them when they're facing tough odds against formidable adversaries, and that might be the Trump administration. That might also be some big company that they're facing. People need an advocate on their side, particularly when we see entities like the Consumer Financial Products Protection Bureau now having returned over $12.5 billion to consumers because those consumers were treated unfairly. We're talking about seniors. We're talking about veterans. We're talking about folks with very little means, and it was the CFPB that stood on their side. Now the Trump administration is weakening that institution, making it all the more important for people to have an attorney general who will be on their side.
I want to go back to this notion of the climate in Washington. As you well know, there's been a lot of discussion about Congresswoman Maxine Waters' call for Trump administration officials to be confronted in public. Is that a position you agree with?
I believe that you can't overcome darkness with more darkness. I think we need more light. We need more people who are going to stand up and really tell the truth about the current situation. I would not be one to do that myself, but what I would say is if you should take them to court, you should use your constitutional rights to raise your voice. You should write letters to the editor. You can organize in your community, and absolutely you need to vote. But I'm not sure that's not a tactic that I would personally endorse. But people are really frustrated in this environment, and I would just say, don't let your personal frustration with the current situation overrun your personal sense of how you should conduct yourself. You can't become like somebody who you deplore and be different from them. So I'm gonna be the one that says fight back, be firm, but also remember that we're not like the people we're standing against here, and so we shouldn't act like them.
Well, this notion of civility has really been permeating Washington and beyond this week, as you know. And an intern for New Hampshire Senator Maggie Hassan was suspended for 1 week for yelling an expletive at the president. Here's that clip. So that 21-year-old intern was reportedly suspended but will keep her job. Do you think that's an appropriate punishment?
Look, I just made it clear that I think we should always maintain a certain degree of decorum, not for the sake of Donald Trump, but for our own sake. But I understand the emotion behind it. I mean, what Donald Trump is doing is hurting people in a very, very serious way, in multiple ways. Not just this thing with this the Muslim ban, but also ripping children and parents away from each other, caging children, destroying the neutrality in the internet, destroying net neutrality, taking away health care from people. These are all really bad things. And of course, you know, it's quite understandable that people would have very strong emotions. But I say, you know, you can do more to counter Trump by voting and organizing and inspiring people than any other way. So I would just urge folks to make sure that they use the most effective methods to stand against Trump.
And just to follow up on that, one more question. For people who feel so strongly, so passionately about their opposition to some of the Trump administration's policies, what would be your advice, and how is it that you plan to elevate the tone of the political discourse in this country?
Well, organize, organize, organize. Reach out to people. Go to people who feel that there's no hope, and show them that you have passion, and therefore they should have some and share that hope. Make sure that you go to the areas where the voter turnout is very low, and make sure that you encourage people and register them and get them to the polls. That will make a meaningful difference. That will protect people from being separated by their families, from losing their health care, from losing their free and fair internet. That will be very effective, and that's what I'm urging folks to do.
Minnesota Congressman Keith Ellison. Congressman, thanks very much for coming on Red and Blue.
Thank you. Thank you very much.